welcome back to another episode of In the Making. I am your host, Emilee Smarr, and we are back in the crib this week with another stellar roundtable for you guys. If anything, I may call it the winner circle because we are here with three champions of the 2022 season. Matt Clark, the USF Juniors champion, Michael D'Orlando, USF2000 Series champion, and last but certainly not least, Jack Jeffers, the Lucas Oil Formula Car Racing Series champion. Super excited to have all of these guys here with us today, and make sure to stay tuned for our one-on-one interview with none other than Augie Pabst, a four-time Team Series champion. Super exciting show today, and we are so happy to have you here with us. Like I said, once again, I am your host, Emilee Smarr, and let's get into the top headlines of this week. We know that we're just about a month out from the first race of the season in St. Pete, but drivers will actually be heading to Sebring about a week before so they can get some testing out of the way, and that just marks one step of all of the preparation that has already begun for drivers across all levels, including the USF Juniors, who have been competing in the Academy Winter Series, getting some prep out of the way before the real season gets started, and some drivers who also competed in the Rolex 24 in Daytona last week, including Francesco Pizzi, who competed on Proton Competition's LMP2 winning team and will be competing with TJ Motorsports this season as the real season gets started. So incredibly exciting time. So make sure to keep up with us on all social media platforms so that way you can keep up with the latest information on USF Pro Championships in 2023. And we are going to get into the segment that everybody came here for today, the Winner's Circle Roundtable. Let's get started introducing some of the winners that we have here with us today. First off, we have got Matt Clark, the first ever USF Juniors champion, racking up 5 wins last year with the team, and he'll be running it back in 2023 with D-Force Racing. Super excited to have you here with us, Matt.
Thank you. I'm excited to be joining the show. I'm really looking forward to it today.
And that takes us on over to our next guest that we have with us. He won the 2022 Lucas Oil Formula Car Race Series title, earning a scholarship to set him up for the next step in his professional career. Let's welcome Jack Jeffers.
Hi guys, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And rounding things out, he's worked his way up the ladder and pulled off a title win in one of the most thrilling finale weekends in USF 2000 history. Welcome to the show, Michael D'Orlando.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's been quite a long day, so hopefully this is pretty fun.
Quite a long day and quite the journey for you, just to get this conversation rolling, quite the journey for you last year in your season. So tell me a little bit about what it was like for you. You kind of hit a plateau early on, but you really hit your stride midway through. So tell me a little bit about what your journey was like.
Well, it's been quite the interesting year, to say the least. I think out of statistics, I've had 14 top 5 finishes. So, I mean, it's not super inconsistent, but I was off to a slow start. I didn't get my first win until Lucas Oil. So with St. Pete, I had a wiring loom failure in qualifying. And never really got anywhere up above 4th place, I think. And then Barber again, I got a 2nd and a 3rd and kind of just worked my way up. So it was a little bit of a rough start to the season, but as soon as I got into Lucas Oil, where I ended up winning the Freedom 75, which I think I'm the only USF driver to win 2 years in a row, let alone twice. I'm not sure. But yeah, as soon as I got back to that race again, the ball started getting rolling again with another win at Road America, Mid-Ohio, and then Portland. But yeah, it was pretty hectic. I think coming out of, I don't remember if it's Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Indy GP or if it was going into Road America, the top 5 drivers in the road to Indy in USF 2000 were all within like 30 points. So it was some crazy tight racing throughout the whole season, and especially getting all the way to Portland, where there was 3 people within 26 points that could have won, and me being the 3rd. Really emphasized the craziness of the entire year. I think it's been quite a long one.
Right, and Mac, you actually competed in Portland, didn't you? Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there. I did a one-off actually for the Portland GP. So I found out I was racing that Tuesday, and it was kind of just to get my feet wet in the USF2000 series, and that was kind of based on the hopes that I would be competing in that series in 2023, and it looks like that's going to come to fruition. So it was a great weekend to kind of get some, experience under my belt, fight with the big boys, and we actually ended up coming away with a win on the first day of the weekend. So really happy about that, and I'm excited for this year.
I was honestly quite surprised that you ended up pulling that win off. That was pretty good. It was pretty
I
good, man.
appreciate that. Yeah, no, it was wild. It was a wild one, but we made it work, and
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good.
I remember opening up my Instagram page and seeing that you won. I was like, no way. That was incredible.
Yeah, it's like the dream come true, right? You always want to do something big on your first weekend and show the guys that you should be there. And I mean, we managed to get it done with D-Force Racing, so really happy about that.
And I think that's a great time to turn it over to Jack. You're really coming in here trying to show guys like the guys that you're talking to right now why you should be in the series. So tell me a little bit about what that journey's been like for you and how racing in the series that you were just in really helped you get to where you're at right now, about to compete in 2023.
The journey's been good. Competing in the Luke Solar Championship was tough. It definitely taught me a lot of things. It's definitely a lot different than go-karting. So coming in, I struggled a little bit in the beginning, but it was tight all the way throughout the series, and I was able to come away with the championship. And going to the last round, 4 drivers could have won the championship. And going into the last weekend, 4 drivers could have won the championship. And going into the last race, only 2 could have. So it taught me a lot. It taught me how to deal with pressure. And yeah, it helped me propel my way into hopefully working on racing the USF junior season this year.
And Mac and Michael, what was that start, for you guys like? What advice can you give Jack here about moving forward this season and really, setting his reputation on the track?
I think.
Yeah, go ahead,
Do
Mike.
you want to go? I don't know.
No, I was just gonna say that. I mean, I've known Jack for a while now, and we talk back and forth. But I think the biggest thing, like you said, is kind of getting over that barrier coming from karts to cars, and that's something that I think a lot of drivers, it's a big jump to make. So I mean, Jack has done that very well. Obviously, he showed that in the Luke Soil School of Racing, and now I think it's about getting wins under his belt in the USF Juniors category and really fighting for that scholarship to keep moving up the ladder.
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with that. Like a lot of stuff that you do from karting and even the Lucas Oil school will transfer to all the stuff that you'll be doing, and it's just a little bit faster. That's all it really is. I mean, you do get a little bit of downforce and just a little bit more horsepower, I assume. I never did the Lucas Oil Championship, so I wouldn't know. But I mean, it seems like you got a pretty solid foundation built. So just trust your instincts and go out there and just drive. I mean, the whole point of us being drivers, right, is to have fun. So if you're not enjoying it, then you're not going to be fast.
But, obviously you're going to have these races where the pressure is on, and I think, Michael, you're no stranger to that. You won one of the most thrilling races to cap the championship last year. So tell me a little bit about what it's like, just handling pressure. How do you get yourself in the right mindset so that way, you can go out and compete?
I think it's a lot of head games. It's a lot of head games. It really is. So, I mean, Portland started before Portland. It was actually the end of Toronto. I made a move on Miles Rowe into turn 8 in the last corner, and I think that kind of set things in motion about like, hey, I'm here. Even though I'm still third in the championship, I'm not going anywhere. So, I mean, Portland was off to a rough start. We didn't quite have the pace. I ended up qualifying, I think, 9th in race 1 and then 6th in race 2 and 3. And it's all about just, keeping your head down and just trying to focus on yourself. So when you get into a final weekend like Portland and everyone's so close, I mean, everyone's shooting for it. It's checkers or wreckers type thing. So if you go out there and you have the same mindset as everyone else, is like, oh yeah, I have to win, I have to do this, I have to do that, then you're not really focusing on your drive. You're not really focusing on what you should be doing. So while everyone else is out there trying to focusing on the wrong aspects of things, like I need to perform, I need to do this, I need to do that. I think the best way to think about it is just I'm in the car, I'm going to focus on me. And even in that last race at Portland, with the incident down on the inside, I took an outside line going into turn 1, and even though I didn't end up in first, I was still back in third or fourth and worked my way up to the front, to third. And then especially on the restart, I finally got my teammate Nikki Hayes and ended up working my way up to the front. And even if you're out front and it seems like the race is going to be easy, it never is. There's a lot of stuff that pops into your mind. Maybe the car isn't right or anything else that could be happening. Miles Rowe was on fire that race, and he drove from the back of the pack all the way up to fifth, I think. I'm not really sure where he finished, but you could, even from my perspective, all he had to do was finish third to win. And it's pushing that thought into the back of my head, while having an extremely oversteery car, being like, just and trying to focus forward. And it's not about thinking about what could happen. It's about what's in the here and now. And you get into that last lap and you realize, like, okay, maybe you could start thinking about it and you just have to finish that last lap. But throughout the race and throughout the season, it's all, don't think about what could be happening. Just focus on you and just focus on your race.
Right. And I feel like, Mac, you kind of entered this series in a different way. Not many people have the same hot start that you did last year. How do you kind of handle a plateau midway through after you have so much success early on? I know that has to be frustrating as somebody who just had so much success early to just kind of hit a point where you're not really seeing much improvement.
For sure. And I think Michael worded that really well. I think it's really important as a racing driver. Yeah, no. It's important as a racing driver to focus on yourself all the time. I always say that, I'm my own, like, I'm my biggest adversary, right? You want to be focused on what you're doing and improving yourself, because that's what matters. And no, you're correct. We had a very strong start to the season. We won the first 4 races. Then we went through a bit of a rocky patch. We had a few mechanical failures and a few incidents on track that didn't quite go our way. So it was about keeping my head down, knowing that we had the pace, knowing that I had the confidence in myself that we could win races, and it was just about kind of returning to that form for the end of the season to really make sure that we sealed the deal on the championship.
Yeah, and going what you were saying, it's like, even when you do have those moments where you're going to plateau, even if you have a shot at winning the championship, or even if you don't know, you have to focus on yourself and maximizing everything that you can, not where you need to be, not focusing on a win. If you have a 5th place car and you have an opportunity for 4th, but it's like a high risk maneuver, then you're just going to stay back and be like, okay, let's get the points. Let's do what we can with what we got. And then when you get back to that opportunity that you can go for the win, and then you take it, you go a little. But that plateau, I mean, that's what wins championships, is how you take your lows and just roll with them.
For sure. Very well said.
Jack, where's one of those, I know that you're especially young in your career, but where's one of those areas where you've already seen a little bit of a struggle that you've had to overcome?
Definitely my karting career. I started off with winning races very in the beginning, and I won a couple of tickets to World Finals. And then there was like a rough patch in junior to where I didn't really win any races at all. And then I finally moved up to senior and haven't come away with a senior win. And then when I moved up to cars, I started the Luxor Championship very strong, winning 3 out of the 4 rounds at NOLA. And then it was Sebring, and then it was Mid-Ohio, and I went from 1st in the championship to 3rd at one point. And I had lost, I was down maybe 30 to 40 points from the guy in 1st place, but I knew the only person you can control out there is yourself. So I knew I just had to focus on myself and focus on my race and just race how I know how to race.
And how does your approach change? Any of you guys can answer this. Jack, since you just spoke, you can answer this question. But how does your mentality change once you realize that getting that championship is actually possible?
I mean, I can't say it changes much. I knew getting that championship was possible after round 1, but even if I had a bad start, the championship was always in play, and I think it's really just whoever keeps their head together, and my mentality kind of stayed the same throughout the whole series, as far as just focusing myself and knowing what I have to do.
Yeah, it's all about, you can't really get comfortable out there. I mean, you always have to be ready for anything. So even if you do have a shot at winning the championship, like even in 2021, like I did in 2021, I ended up finishing 2nd. But it's always you got to be ready for it. But you can't just be comfortable. Anytime that you just settle in, there's going to be someone else that just throws you back out of your seat again. That's always how it is, especially for a championship. you got to be on the balls of your feet, even if you do have, you know, a 50-point lead that can go away within 2 races.
For
Yeah,
lack
I
of a better
100%
term,
agree with
you
you.
can't take your foot off the gas, right? Like it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to
I,
keep the momentum.
I think after NOLA, when I had such a decent sized lead in the championship, I got too comfortable and I got too relaxed and I wasn't edgy and I wasn't on my game, and that's I think what set me back during the middle of the season.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good way to. I'm done.
so when you do get a little bit too comfortable, you know, I mean, I know that obviously getting wins makes you comfortable, but is there anything else that makes you more comfortable? You know, you start getting compliments and praise from the public. You know, how have you kind of seen the crowd receive you guys, and how much of a difference do the fans make in you, you know, believing in your performance, and how that changes, or if you've seen it change once you hit those plateaus? Like, are they still fans of you when you're not winning anymore, or if you're struggling?
Oh, Max, the fan favorite for sure.
no, I'd like to think that, but I mean, it's nice to have fans back because we went through a phase, at least in Canada, in like during the pandemic, right, where fans weren't allowed at the racetrack. So to have fans back the last few years, and especially now that we're starting to move up into, you know, series with a bigger fan base, and I mean, the Road to Indy did such a good job with marketing and pushing it out to the fans, both local and worldwide. It is comforting as a driver, you know, people, you know, either like DM you on Instagram or ask for an autograph at the racetrack, and you know they say, oh, like my kid loves you, the way you race, and blah 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 blah. It's nice as a driver to have, you know, those little kind of boosts of like for lack of a better term, like moral support, especially when you're having a down day at the racetrack. But I mean, other than getting wins, those are like the little things that, you know, kind of make you put your head back down and say, okay, you know, I gotta get to this plateau, I gotta start winning races again.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that because like I don't think where we're at yet is enough where it overwhelms us. It's just a nice boost. And even like you said, you have someone come up to you and be like, oh, you know, you can show them the car, you can do all this stuff, and like you have like some kids run around and like, oh, this is so cool. And then next thing you know, you feel like you're their role model. So, and it's definitely a good feeling to be out there and. Just like an upcoming driver, even though we're not in the Indy car yet, it's a good feeling to be there and just feel like you have a other purpose other than just to win. I mean, as we all know, motorsports is a form of entertainment, right? So we're not just out there for ourselves, but we're out there to please other people. So it's good to know that some people are watching us and we do actually put on a good show.
Yeah.
Is there a specific moment that you can kind of pinpoint with maybe a young fan where you said, okay, this is why I do what I do? Michael, Mac, and
I got one for sure. It was like kind of like, I don't know, like an aha moment. It was actually after the win at Portland, and I didn't see my dad initially when we got to the podium, and I saw him afterwards, and obviously, like, you know, we exchanged hugs and we were all really excited. So I walked back to the team trail with him, and if you've ever been to Portland, you know that like the podium area is really far away from the paddock, so it was quite a hike back. So we were walking back, you know, one hand on the trophy, just walking together, and these two little kids like yelled over the grandstand, like they were still sitting in the grandstands with their dad, like after they'd finished watching the race, and they yelled down at me, and they're like, wait, we want to get your autograph, and so they came down, and I signed some cards for them, and that's just a moment that made me really happy. And I think it's, you know, little moments like those, like Michael said, it's not overwhelming for us yet, but hopefully that continues to grow, you know, into our professional careers.
Yeah, I had a moment like that at Toronto as well. There's always, I think at Toronto, there's these groups of like camps, I guess. I'm not really sure what the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there was also kids on track there as well. So we had a couple of groups come around, and I was lucky enough to be one of the drivers and at the Road to Indy pick to bring some of the kids to, and we ended up having a whole group of kids and people around the car and just show them like all this stuff. I could show them the steering wheel, put them in the seat, and do all this kind of stuff, and we get to sign autographs and all that thing and all that stuff. Those cool things. So it's a cool experience to be there and know that you're kind of putting an imprint in their lives, even if, you know, maybe they're too young to remember any of that stuff. They're growing up in the environment and in the racing environment. They go to the race and then they get to meet a driver. Not everyone gets to, you know, do that sort of thing. And it's, even if there's so many people out there that just like watch Formula One or watch some of the stuff on TV, but they never actually get to go to a race. So even these kids coming to the event and getting what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word. Just being there with us is definitely it's a good feeling.
In the atmosphere, absolutely. So
yeah, the atmosphere.
Yeah. So, Jack, I know that you're only a sophomore, so maybe you haven't had a moment like that yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had that moment yet, but hopefully I will.
No, and that's a great time to talk about what you're excited to do in 2023. You know, this is your first year competing in the series. I know that, you know, we've already talked a little bit about you making that transition over, but is there a specific race that you're really excited for this season?
I can't say there's a specific race that I'm excited for this season. I think I'm just really looking forward to hopefully be running in the USF Juniors Championship, because I think if I can repeat what Mac did and win it and just keep moving up that ladder, I think I have a solid shot.
Right, so let's
Mac's
talk.
got a tougher crowd this year, though.
No, I'll come the same program. Like, you know, you got to keep winning and move the ladder. And for me this year, I'm really excited for Toronto. I mean, obviously I got the big flag in the background.
Oh, of course.
I'm a Canadian boy through and through. And it's the one race on the road to Indy where, you know, we're north of the border. So that's my big weekend this year.
I was going to say I was excited to go to Gateway this year, but that's off the calendar. It's pretty sad, but I guess we do go to Circuit of the Americas in Sebring now. It's 2 more tracks that we haven't gone to yet, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see what the cars can do there. Especially we've done some testing at Sebring and the Indy Pro car, and we've been quite quick. But Circuit of the Americas is a different story. I don't think anyone on the road to Indy has raced it, so that'll be a good change of pace, and hopefully maybe we'll have our first time winner there. So
actually, I will say, if USF Juniors is going to Dakota, I'm looking forward to that, because I live 1 hour away from that track, and I remember going to that track watching F1 when I was younger, and it was like, I remember growing up, I was like, man, racing and just driving on this track would be so cool.
Have you ever driven it or no?
No, I have not driven it.
Oh, it's so fun to drive.
It's
You'd love it. Yeah, you'd really love it.
They just told me that you guys will be competing in Dakota this year, so exciting race on deck for you. But
Yep.
You guys are all going to be racing in scholarship cars this year, correct? So what are you excited for about that? You know, do you take any more pride in hitting the track, you know, knowing that you do have this scholarship money on the line? Let's talk about that one, Mac.
I think it's cool. I like how the road to Indy does it. I think there's a lot of positive marketing behind it, but it's also like a little bit of a target on your back, I feel like, for the other drivers. You know, just because you're the scholarship driver doesn't mean they want to give you any more room. So I think you kind of have to prove why you got the scholarship. And you know, for me, I don't really have a chip on my shoulder about it. I'm just looking forward to trying to win the next one.
I think first of all, you're Canadian. Is that still red, white, and blue for you? Is the
No, the blue doesn't count, man. It's just red and white.
Yeah, because I mean the red, white, and blue scholarship car looks really good. It's actually one of the best. It's one of the best looking cars on the grid for sure, and that's unbiased opinion. I mean, but I kind of agree, but at the same time, like the reason why you have it is because you did prove that you are a championship winner, right? So the reason why you have that livery is you already proved it. So I think there's really no other there's really nothing else to prove other than just go out and drive like yourself. And if you go with the attitude that like, yeah, like I'm the big guy, and like you with a little bit more pride in your system, I think that's going to end up being a downfall. Honestly, you still got to keep that humbleness and keep your head down, feet on the floor, and just keep going, because the only reason why we're here is to get to the IndyCar, and this is just another help, another bonus, another boost up the ladder. So I mean, in reality, it just shouldn't change your mindset. It should just physically help you. That's all it is.
Do you have any specific goals that you're really hoping to achieve this season? Anybody can start with this one.
Oh, I hope I can pull another Kirkwood and just use this scholarship to go to Indy Lights, and then Indy Lights to go to IndyCar. So yeah, I mean that's the goal. But I think the red, white, and blue scholarship car deserves to be on the top step this year again. So I mean, if the three of us can do it, well, we can make that work, can't we?
I don't think any of us would mind that. I think every driver starts the championship, right, with the hope of winning it. So I think that's all of our goals, right? You want to come in, you want to make a good impression, and you want to keep moving up the ladder.
Yeah, give Anderson a reason to keep the scholarship system going, and for us three drivers, if we, go out and perform well in our respective series, then it's definitely a reason to keep, and definitely a reason to keep promoting and keep going, because I think this is definitely one of the best ladder series in the entire world. And to get to IndyCar, this is how you do it.
Yeah, you don't see any other series around the world, that have a scholarship ladder system like this that really helps out talent, right?
Yeah.
Well, what a great conversation with all of you here today. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see what y'all do in 2023.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Again, thank you so much to our guests for such an incredible roundtable. And now it's time to move on to our one-on-one interview with none other than Augie Pabst. Next up, a different perspective of what it takes to win a title. He's overseen it from both a driver's perspective and in the big picture, with his team winning 4 team titles in USF2000 since 2017. The most recent coming this past season after big performances from Miles Rowe and Jace Denmark. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Augie. I know that you have a big schedule.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So what is preparation looking like for the 2023 season for you? Obviously another big year of big goals for you guys. Tell me a little bit about what the journey has been like in preparation so far.
Yeah, I mean, we started testing right away after the season ended at Portland. And it's really been pretty flat out since then. We've basically, tested every month since Portland all the way up until now. We had maybe 4 weeks at one point where we did some rebuilding on the cars and the mechanical stuff, but generally speaking, it's just been testing straight out. So, in fact, just now before I got on this, we just finished loading the trailers. They're heading out to Sebring for another test. So it's been really busy, and it's good, just stay in the swing of things.
What kind of mental preparation, just aside from all of the car side of things, the mechanical side, what kind of mental preparation goes into getting your drivers ready for a season?
I mean, they really take care of that themselves. At the level we're competing at now, they really come to us very well prepared physically, mentally. They definitely need encouragement. But generally speaking, they're really focused on what's going on, and we just really spend the time on the cars and being prepared on all aspects.
Right, and we mentioned drivers, like Miles Rowe, who do have a little bit more experience here, but you're getting them into a new series here, preparing them for a new kind of race. So what difference do you see, in preparing guys that you've had with your team, but that are transitioning for a new level of the sport?
I mean, for, the guys that come into USF2000 obviously are a little bit greener than the others that are moving on. But generally speaking, you'll see through the years, you see the maturity level, because a lot of them come in fairly young, in the 14 to 15 years old range. And that transition period from the 14, 15 to 17, 18, or 19, they almost become different people from their maturity standpoint. So it's interesting to see how they, progress, and they learn obviously a lot in the first year. But we've had quite a few guys that continue on, move to Indy Lights and so on, and it's just really cool to see them moving on.
Is there one driver that you can maybe pinpoint over the last few years that just you've really been impressed with how much they've grown, not only on the track, but just in their mentality and their maturity?
Yeah, that's you're putting me in a spot here, but there's a few guys that have really excelled. The most recent, probably Hunter McElroy's moved to Indy Lights, had a really good season last year. going way back as far as 2014, Austin Cindric was with us. He won the Daytona 500 last year, which was, it's a different aspect of motorsport from the open wheel stuff. But there's Rinus VeeKay, who's an IndyCar. There's been quite a few over the years, and it's fun to see that.
What difference do you see from, your time racing from the guys that are racing now? I know that you've grown up in a racing family. So how have you seen things change over the years with the state of racing as it is today?
The biggest change that I see, or the difference from then till now, there's technology is one thing. We had H pattern, flip the throttle to downshift and match your revs, and now it's just all hit the brake and click, click, click on the paddles. But the biggest thing is when I drove, you had to be 18 years old to get an SCCA license to race. So now they're coming in at 13 in USF juniors and 14 from USF2000 and up. And so these kids come already champions typically in karting or some other training. And then, by the time they're 18, they've already had 4 years in cars, where, when I and the people my age started, that was, you came from go-karts, but you had not really been in cars, or at least racing cars, not legally, up until that point. So they're just so much further ahead at such a young age. It's really impressive.
So, progressing your teams with these young athletes who are so much farther ahead of the game, what was that first team win like for you? And, how much hope did that give you for your team moving forward and just creating a program that can really produce winners?
Yeah, winning is kind of everything, especially in this sport. So, it's just a fuel to the fire that, we all already, before you're winning, to get to the point of winning, you're putting in crazy hours and details like you can't believe on the littlest things. Hours in the shop, late nights at the track, you name it. Just, you pretty much live and breathe it. And so anytime you've got a win, it really just pours more fuel to the fire and increases that, kind of level of dedication and interest. It just grows and grows.
What is the formula for Pabst Racing that created, the back-to-back-to-back championships? How do you create that kind of consistent success? And, I know that you can't obviously give the secret away, but how do you create that consistent success?
I think it's really all the obvious things. And maybe for just a few, it's not, but, so first of all, you've got to have decent drivers. They've got to have talent, because we can put the best cars out, and if they can't drive it, they're not going to win. But so you really have to start with having good drivers. But then from the other angle, you've got to have good cars, and you've got to have consistent cars. You've got to have reliable cars, and they need to be fast. And truthfully, that really comes from the people. And I don't mean myself, I mean the people that we have in place. From the engineering side, the mechanics, it's a team effort all the way around. And if you got one person out of place that's not pulling the rope in the same direction, it's really difficult. So it really comes down to the people, and it's really quite that simple. As I mentioned earlier, just the dedication and putting in the extra hours to get everything just right, and saying, oh, that's good enough, just that doesn't work. You've got to be consistently at the front, and that's the only way to do it.
And I know at surface level, you were saying, it seems kind of obvious, or it seems kind of simple, but I feel like, when we're looking at racing at surface level, we're not looking at what the off season looks like for a team owner. So how much do you think that, having that off season to prepare who your drivers might be for the next season plays into creating a successful team?
It's a huge part. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, when the season ends at Portland, next year starts the next day, or the next season starts the next day. So, it's like from that point on, everything is focused on St. Pete or whatever the first race would be, but typically St. Pete, and you just build and build from that point on.
What are the measurables maybe that you look for in a young driver that make you say, yes, this is somebody that I would like to have on my team. This is somebody who's going to produce?
I mean, it starts with their resume and what they've done previously. We look at whether it was karting. Typically, it's karting at some level, usually a high level. Another thing, really is just getting them in the car for a test, and typically, you have a point where they come to your shop usually to make a seed if you're lucky, and that's really helpful because you get to kind of get to know the personalities and, quite honestly, the parents and their personalities, and kind of feel out what their goals and expectations are, and where their mindset is, and then it moves to a track test day, and you can see what they can do and what their feedback is in the car, and then just again, the chemistry, and can we work with this person throughout the season, and how does mom or dad or both react to certain situations, and are they helicopter parents, or are they all sorts of different things. We've seen the whole gamut. So there's just a lot that goes into that big pot of stew to figure out, is this going to be a successful journey together or not, and I think generally speaking we get it right, and we have it right most of the time, but there's been times over the years where you realize pretty early on that maybe wasn't a great decision, or this isn't the best situation, but and oddly sometimes you still end up with some good results, but you just sort of have to grin and bear it. So and I'm sure that's a mutual thing for drivers and their families as well, but if everybody's having fun and you're doing well and you're having fun doing well, it's a kind of a match made in heaven. But there are times when the honeymoon ends really quickly, and you just have to grin and bear it.
And how did you see, your drivers, their families respond to that 2022 finish?
Yeah, that was a tough one for all of us. There was a lot of different angles that played into that. For ourselves as a team, it was just so disappointing to lose the drivers' championship. There was so many angles to that, and it just, we've looked back and so what could we have done different as a team, and I just don't think there was much we could have done. It just played out the way it did. It's just a shame, but again, it's the fuel to the fire to come back and do it right in 2023.
And tell me a little bit just about how hard it is to win a driver championship. You've seen so much success at the team level. What's different about winning those individual races?
Well, when the team championships are based, on good performances, but it also consistent performance amongst your cars, which the more players you have, the better chance you have of that team championship, where the drivers championship is kind of measuring them, each driver alone. So, we have not won a drivers championship other than the national class championship in 2011. So we've come extremely close, with VK, Jake Edson, Hunter McElrea. I mean, we've come very close over the years, and it's just been like, it slips through your fingers just so slightly, and it just, again, it comes down to like getting everything perfect. And some of those were, situations where mistakes were made over the years as far as drivers, and some were, not necessarily a driver's fault. And I take some credit on the team side, but where we've had like, a $10 sensor fail and just leaves everybody hanging. So, it's really, really tough. And for anybody that looks at the USF Pro Series from the outside, I mean, it is extremely difficult. Like, it's very tough to win. The talent level is extremely high, and it's super impressive. And I think anybody from around the world would appreciate that if they were here racing in it.
So how big of a goal in 2023 is clinching that drivers' championship for you guys, and what steps have you already taken, and maybe make sure that that's more possible?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's goal number one. From my perspective, if we're winning a drivers' championship, it's quite likely in most cases that you're going to lock up the team championship. Now, I'm saying that, but we've also demonstrated quite well over our years that you can win the team championship 4 times and still not win that drivers' championship. So, but generally speaking, if you've got fast drivers and fast cars and you're winning that championship, the drivers' championship, I think the team comes along with it. But it's absolutely, and for both series for us, it's the number one goal. The scholarships are so important to these drivers to move to the next level, and that is ultimately what we're trying to provide, from within our team.
Is there a favorite scholarship moment that you have just over the last few years where you've seen somebody win and you've said, okay, I'm really happy that this scholarship is going to this person, and I can't wait to see what they do with that money? I know that it's this insane amount of money, so it's wild to see it potentially go somewhere where it's not going to be used to its full potential. So are there any, drivers that you've seen over the last few years where you've said, okay, this money's going to a good place, and I'm really happy to see that this person got it?
Yeah. I mean, there's been a bunch over the years, but I'm probably forgetting one. But I mean, honestly, a guy like Kyle Kirkwood stands out to me, who, from my knowledge, didn't really have the family money and support to get through this sort of ladder and to IndyCar, and I think I'm pretty certain that without the scholarship that Kyle wouldn't be driving in IndyCar today. So, and aside from that, he's a great guy and great competitor and gracious, I would say. And there's few guys over the years that aren't so gracious, and so I just thinking off the top of my head, I think Kyle's one that is a really good example of someone who earned it, deserved it, and made the most of it.
And so often you see so many of these drivers, kind of deprived of opportunity because they don't have enough money. One of those drivers being one of yours that you're going to have in the series this year, Miles Rowe. How excited are you to see him, hit the track and be able to have that kind of insurance and reassurance to say, like, yes, I'm able to race all the way through this season? Do you think that his performance is going to improve at all because he does have that security?
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference from a year ago today, where we were moving forward in USF2000 with a very limited amount of funding that was sort of, we'll see how you do, and then we'll decide if you can keep going, and which was still extremely appreciated. But the mindset for Miles and myself now going forward, we know that we're secure through the season, and basically it's just job number one is to get results. So we don't have to worry about all the details in the funding side and all the things that went into last year, and now we're just focused on just hitting our marks every weekend, and that's what I'm really looking forward to, because uncertainty, it messes with your mind a bit, and when things are uncertain, it's easier to lose focus on the job.
All right, well, we are certainly looking forward to seeing what you guys put out on the track this season. Thank you so much for joining us today, Augie. It was awesome to have you in the crib, and we can't wait to see you in St. Pete.
Thanks. Same here. I can't wait for it.
Thank you, Augie, for joining us for an awesome one-on-one interview. We're so excited to see what your team does on the track in 2023. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of In the Making. I'm your host, Emilee Smarr, and we will be back here in the crib with you next Friday for episode 4. So make sure you follow us on social media and stay tuned for all things USF Pro Championships.